Every step, every delay, every decision, you're carrying something. But what if it's time to let go? What if purpose isn't found, but formed? With every step you take forward.
And make our offspring a comfort to our eyes. Okay, so that's the that brings us to the to the end.
Yeah.
أولئك يجزون الغرفة بما صبروا. These servants will be rewarded with the highest places in paradise for their steadfastness.
Yeah.
بما صبروا.
Yeah.
Because this requires steadfastness.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't come easy. You have to work at it and be deliberate. خالدين فيها. So these servants will be rewarded in the highest places in paradise for their steadfastness. There they will be met with greetings and peace. يلقون فيها تحية وسلامة. خالدين فيها, abiding therein. حسنت مستقرا ومقاما. In contrast to like an evil resting place, which we saw earlier.
Right.
It's a happy home and resting place. Oh, how beautiful an abode and place of rest.
You know, I'm struck here that the greeting of peace is actually the greeting of paradise.
Yeah.
You know, and so when, you know, we see this in the Gospels always, Jesus is saying, peace be with you, you know, and it was like his customary greeting with his people, with his companions, his disciples. But also this is the standard Muslim greeting, right? It's like the greeting of paradise. And so in a way, it's almost as if we're already there in our imagination, if we're sincere, you know, we're already there in our spiritual imagination, and we're greeting one another with peace as a way of, it's almost a form of reminding one another of all of this, and bringing one another back to you know, this caravan of light and hope and gratitude. Yeah, but it's interesting that the greeting of peace is what happens in paradise, and yet we're doing that in this broken world all the time. It's a beautiful custom. I love that.
Ash-Shu'ara. So the next surah,
Poets.
the poets. This also has, you know, narrations of the prophets inflected slightly differently. A huge section on the prophet Moses, and then verses on Ibrahim, Nuh, Hud, Thamud, Saleh, Lut, Shu'aib. And so I suggest they're good to read, but we're going to skip over those.
But let's take a minute and just remember who the poets were.
Okay.
Right, in pre-Islamic Arabia. So in pre-Islamic Arabia, language was really the most powerful cultural force that they had. The Arabic was and is today, but the Arabic was extremely nuanced and complex and grammatically very, very sophisticated, fully inflected language. And yet it was not a written language per se. And so the true wielders of power within this tribal, somewhat barbaric world, the true wielders of power were the poets, because language itself was viewed as a kind of mystical force or mystical realm in which one could sort of vault into the realm of the supernatural. And the poets were able, I mean, they had incredible skills of composition and even spontaneous composition. And they were capable of such incredible linguistic feats with this complex language without writing, right? It was just extemporaneous and it just flowed, that people thought that they were in communion with unseen forces like the jinn, these creatures made of fire that we read about in the Quran. And so one of the early attacks on the Prophet, upon him be peace, was that this is just poetry that you're bringing us.
Yeah.
Right. And so the poetic's claim to power was a kind of access to supernatural forces. And so there's going to be, I think, a natural sense of perceived rivalry in the Quran between the poets and the prophets, because prophecy is a totally different thing, and yet it's possible on this plane, on the worldly plane, that people could confuse them. And so and they're not rivals in the sense that they're equals, but they're rivals in the sense that that they were kind of, in a way, competing differently for that same kind of supernatural power.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And the Quran will say at some point that this is not the saying of a poet.
That's right.
وَمَا هُوَ
That's right.
بِقَوْلِ الشَّاعِرِ. But here, towards the end of the surah, unless you have a specific place
No.
you want to go, maybe we read a couple of sections from the end. I'm looking at verse 192, and we'll read just a few from here, and then go to 224, where it actually speaks about poets.
Okay, excellent. And just again, as you said, like we're getting all these flashbacks to all these different prophets and their situations and their challenges. So this is great. So go ahead.
Right. And then, just before this, it'll say, yeah, inna fi dhalika la-aya, there's a sign in all of these, the tales of the prophets. But then on verse 191, 192, وَإِنَّهُ لَتَنزِيلُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. So truly this Quran has been sent down by the Lord of the worlds.
Right.
نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينَ.
Yeah.
The trustworthy spirit brought it down, or with it came down the spirit of faith and truth. To thy heart and mind, to your heart, Prophet, so that you could bring a warning. Ala qalbik.
Yeah.
So the Quran is, comes to his heart, which is very different from Moses hearing it, in the bush.
Right.
So there are different modes of revelation, and here it's the spirit, Ruh al-Amin, either brings it down, or with it comes the spirit, and it's coming on the Prophet's heart so that he can warn the people. Bilisanin Arabiyyin Mubin. Again, in the perspicuous or in a clear Arabic language.
The clear Arabic language.
وَإِنَّهُ لَفِي زُبُرِ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And this was foretold in the scriptures of earlier religions. Or without doubt, it is announced in the mystic books of former peoples.
But this language that the Quran uses for this is the tanzil. Really, it's as you translate it here, as the sending down. So there's no sense that like there's a spirit of inspiration and then the Prophet's kind of just expressing it in his own way. It's like it really, literally, it's like being sent down upon your heart. So it's like being sent down upon his heart, and then from his heart, it's going to come out in his Arabic, his Arabic tongue.
Yeah.
But it's not his. So that's why Muslims differentiate in a very, very conscious and very explicit way between the Quranic voice and the Prophet's own voice.
Yeah.
So the Prophet's sayings and doings, while seen as being inspired, are kept totally separate.
Yeah.
And that this voice is seen as being totally not his.
And this is exactly where Fazlur Rahman got into trouble. No,
I know that there was controversy. I mean, he was a brilliant and astute and angry scholar in some ways. So.
But he had said that, in some ways, the Quran is both God's word and the Prophet's.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that he said that. Okay.
And that is what got him into trouble. And so I'm not looking for trouble. I'm just narrating this as
and Fazlur Rahman, just for those of you who don't know, he was a great scholar of Islamic studies and Quranic studies who taught at the University of Chicago, and he was one of the lights of Chicago while he lived and taught here. But he was run out of his home country because he was he fearlessly said some controversial things, and that to me is probably the most controversial.
Right.
Wow.
And so here, if we continue on 224, it comes to the poets.
Okay.
وَالشُّعَرَاءُ and the poets. And this is the difference between poets
Yeah.
and prophets, right? Because prophets don't make things up, but poets exaggerate, prone to exaggeration, and and so this is what it says: وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. I love the way it sounds. أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّهُمْ فِي كُلِّ وَادٍ يَهِيمُونَ وَأَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ.
Yeah.
Like the poets, only those who are lost in error follow the poets. Do you not see how they rove aimlessly in every valley, and how they say what they do not do? And so that's the difference.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Prophet loved poetry and he valued poets. It's not that poetry itself is bad, but it can be prone to exaggeration,
Yeah.
and which is not like revelation.
And even today, right? So poets still in the Arabic speaking world are like rock stars. You know, a poet can fill an entire stadium full of people, and all that's on stage is a microphone, and
Right.
the poet is there reciting his poetry,
Right.
and people are just rapt in attention, you know. And so the Arabic language continues to sort of wield this kind of poetic power in the lives of people and the imaginations of people. But in the pre-Islamic Arabian context, I think the Quran needed to make a very, very clear distinction between what the prophets are producing, as in this Quran itself, and what the poets produce.
Yeah,
And not all of the poets were noble. We know that in pre-Islamic Arabia, they
Yeah.
had a kind of a
sure.
the diplomatic
Right.
status, and they
Yeah.
some of them were quite colorful in their lifestyles.
Right. And I mean, I like how you're highlighting the aspect of poetry and in the culture of that time, because in Moses' time it was said to have been magic,
Mm.
and this is why Moses was sent with these other signs, right? That the magicians, when they acknowledged them, they were completely overcome and said, we acknowledge that this is not from any human being,
Right.
because we know our craft,
Mm.
and this is not it. And so the same thing happened with the prophet, but only through poetry.
Mm.
And when the poets would listen, they would say, this is not from any human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is a lesson for us, is what we have to be aware of, what's persuasive in our culture,
Yeah.
and then to find a way to argue or to convey or to reason in that mode, such that the greatest experts will find at least what we're saying to be compelling, especially when it's inspired by God's revelation. And that's one way to reach people, in every age and in every community.
Yeah.
With surats, if we jump ahead to Qasas,
we're jumping so much tonight. Yeah, but it's okay.
we're catching up. It's
All right.
fine.
Okay.
Again, there's the story of Moses and his mother, and this time it talks about his exile into Midian and his marriage and his biding his time there, and building a family, and then he sees the fire. Yep.
Okay. We passed by Surah An-Naml.
Did we pass by
Yes,
number?
but that's okay. I mean, it's the Surah of the Ant.
Oh, let's do that.
Yes, yeah,
Let's,
you
no,
want to, because there might be some nuggets there that we
there
want to-
is, especially
Okay,
the
okay.
story of Solomon.
Okay.
Let's do that.
All right.
I jumped ahead one surah to Qasas.
That's all right. I know you're working hard to get us caught up
That's
on
right.
this evening of the 20th portion.
Oh yes, of course. Naml,
Okay.
Tasid.
Yes.
So again, those letters.
Huh.
I think in this I'd like to read the story of Solomon
Okay.
and the Queen of Sheba, but feel free to point us.
No, that's good. That's good. Let's do it. Lead us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So verse 15,
Mm.
we gave knowledge to David and Solomon.
Yep.
That they both said, praise be to God who has favored us over many of his believing servants. And Solomon succeeded David.
Mm-hmm.
He said, people, we have been taught the speech of birds.
Yeah.
So some wondrous things with Solomon and David, and we have been given a share of everything. This is clearly a great favor. Solomon's hosts of jinn, men, and birds were marshaled in ordered ranks before him.
Yeah.
And when they came to the valley of the ants, one ant said, Ants, go into your homes in case Solomon and his hosts unwittingly crush you. Solomon smiled broadly at her words and said, Lord, inspire me to be thankful for the blessings you have granted me and my parents, and to do good deeds that please you. Admit me by your grace into the ranks of your righteous servants.
Okay, can we stop just for a second?
Yes.
Okay.
How do you
Okay. Wow.
How do you read this?
So just a academic footnote. The speech of birds is also Mantaq al-Tayr, is also the name of a great 13th century Sufi classic that's often translated as the Conference of the Birds.
Farid ad-Din
Yes,
Attar.
it's a Sufi or a mystical fable about the journey to God. So and the bird of Solomon, the hoopoe in English, the bird of Solomon features very prominently in that fable, that medieval fable. Now the other thing is I just not only does Solomon have command of the languages, not just of the birds here, but also of the ants. So he's hearing the ants and he's understanding. So it's one of the unique gifts that's given to Solomon. But I love this prayer because he's asking God to make him grateful. You know, it's a beautiful prayer, and the Quran is going to repeatedly, call us to gratitude and say how important gratitude is. But here we have the wisest of humans, Solomon, who chose wisdom over riches, asking God first and foremost to make him grateful. I love that beginning of his prayer.
Now, do you think that this is just miraculous and unique and somehow supernatural that he understood the language of the birds and ants, or that there is actually someday we will, for lack of a better word, progress or advance far enough such that we will have some insight into these things?
Well, I think we're learning that that what the Quran says is that they have their communities and they have their languages and they have their ways of worship. But I can remember a few years ago listening to National Public Radio about a scholar who had some kind of major national grant to decode the language of whales, and so she had this almost like a Google Translate that she had developed, but it was for the language of whales, and it was fascinating because it was almost as if in a couple of years we could have a transmitter that would allow us to speak to our dogs, or at least understand like what our dogs and our cats are telling us, because she had developed this whole AI-driven software that allowed her to decode the languages of another species, right? And so I think that it's entirely possible.
Yeah, and we know that with primates, even they've discovered that if you intone a call in a certain way, like the monkey will look up that it's an eagle or something, a hawk coming, or if you inflect it with another way, they'll look around as if it's a lion. So they're figuring out some of this stuff, but I don't know how we should read these things other than somewhat miraculous at this stage, but nonetheless,
but we're we're reading a book that places us in a theater of miracles.
Yeah, sure.
And so I don't think that we have to necessarily scientifically debunk these references. I think it's a beautiful illustration of a human being who clearly has a sense of benevolence for the creation, but he has such a deep understanding that it's described here as him understanding their language.
And so, do you feel like this is actually a historical figure, or it's
Now, I don't want to suffer Fazlur Rahman's fate and be run out of Chicago.
Or is it true, but in a deeper sense, not in necessarily a literal
Well,
historical sense,
you know,
physical,
it's-
material sense?
the Quran doesn't tell us stories in a historical way,
Hmm.
right? The Quran tells us stories in order to teach us something,
Yes.
not teach us history, but to teach us
Moral
spiritual
lessons, yeah,
principles,
yeah.
moral lessons,
Right.
and that's why the Quran almost never tells us a whole sustained story.
Hmm.
You know, Surah Yusuf is the only example, right, of a completely sustained story in the Quran. And so I don't think that we need to, I don't think that we need to really come to a definitive answer
Sure.
about whether this historically happened this way or not. You know, I'm reminded of a teaching of Black Elk, the indigenous North American wise man and really medicine man in many ways. And Black Elk, when he told the story of White Buffalo Calf Woman, which was a myth, right, about how the pipe came to the people, he said, you know, whether it happened this way, exactly this way or not, I don't know. But if you think about it, you'll see that it's true.
Sure.
You
Sure.
know, and so I think
There's no question
and
about
so
the
I
truth,
think
yeah.
that my sense here with Solomon, you know, hearing and understanding the languages of the birds and the ants, and you know, I think that there's
The truth there.
a truth
And
there.
what is the lesson for us? Like when I read this, what am I supposed to like? I like what you said about, you know, the gratitude. I think that's the key here. And is it? This is unscripted, so I have I wasn't. In fact, I even actually skipped over the surah, so I'm not like planning this.
You tricked me.
No, I'm not
Yes,
planning.
yes.
No, I'm not.
Yes, yeah.
I'm thinking, but here's what I'm thinking. I mean,
Okay.
and this conversation has helped me. That I mean, here we're seeing an extreme hierarchy. Like there's Solomon,
Yeah,
who's the best of creation, who's the messenger of God,
yeah.
and here's a little ant, and by his power, his command, his just, you know, by the strength that he wields, he's able to influence everyone underneath him, right? And they're in some ways fearful that
Yeah, they're fearful.
that they can get caught
Yeah.
up, and the way he's reacting to that,
Yeah, فَتَبَسَّمَ
right.
ضَاحِكًا.
that he's, you know,
He
he
chuckled.
chuckled. He doesn't dismiss the hierarchy. This is
No.
just how God is created, right?
Yeah,
But he's asking for his own. He's looking at how he can be better and more grateful for the station he has, and thereby hopefully more merciful and more responsible. Maybe there's that's the lesson. And so everyone who's in a hierarchy, who wields so much power over others and doesn't realize that, you know, the effect that they have on people, that
yeah.
maybe, I don't know, this just
Because he's asking for gratitude,
right,
for the favors that God has bestowed upon him and his parents.
right,
And then he says, you know, and that I will live righteously, that I'll you know, do righteous deeds that
Right.
please you. And so in a way, his relationship with you know, after hearing the ants and chuckling, he immediately goes into a prayer asking God that, one, he'll be grateful, and two, that he will be righteous,
yeah,
in a manner that would be pleasing
Be
to
pleasing.
God. And so here this actually moves from the fear of the ants to this light, benevolent,
the righteous
you know,
conduct of
righteous conduct that
of God's
that-
caliph.
and we're
Yes.
right, and we're totally sure that not a single ant died in this exchange, right?
Yes.
So we have this sense of the benevolence of
Hopefully.
Solomon and his desire to live in a way that's pleasing to God, and his desire to be grateful. And he was just so amused that the ants would have been
Yeah.
afraid of him,
Yeah.
because they did not have to be.
Right. And but another lesson could be as well that, you know, here we are, we're exterminating species at an astonishing rate, you know,
Oh.
pesticides. I mean, we're just callous.
Yeah.
And to think of ecosystems and these other communities of bugs
Yeah.
that we're driving out of existence, but that somehow there's a purpose for them, and each one of them is probably fearful in this way, but we wantonly go about exploiting the planet to our own peril.
Yeah, and we're learning how delicate the balance is. If we destroy the bees, then there's nothing to pollinate our crops.
Right.
And so we're
harming ourselves.
We're harming ourselves.
Right.
And so so this is all so self-destructive how we live.
Right. But that's again, kind of a utilitarian or almost a self-interested thought. Like, okay, a consequentialist.
Yeah.
But even here, it's even beyond that. It's deontological. And I know I've used these words before, but it basically just means that instead of thinking of the consequences, we think of our duty and our obligation not to harm to begin with, even before the consequences.
Right. And there's a tenderness about this passage that I think is really beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a tenderness in the way Solomon chuckles when he hears their anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the next verse, it talks about the hoopoe. Who? How do you pronounce it? Hoopoe.
Yeah,
Hoopoe.
We always struggle in our Sufism class as to how we're gonna pronounce this. But I'm noticing, CD, that where
are we on time?
With the hour.
You're kidding.
We've come to an hour.
Oh.
Yes.
I just looked at it and it was like 33.
Yeah.
What happened? Well, we should stop and read the rest of the story. It's actually a wonderful story, and with an encounter with another civilization that Solomon has, and then an exchange that they have, correspondence through the jinn, which is another species that Solomon wielded kind of authority over.
Yeah, and he was able to see them and speak with them and interact with them and even exercise authority over them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so just imagine if you stop and kind of read and think about this. This is an endless material. This is an endless journey of learning through, not just in Ramadan, but throughout the year, that you can enjoy as you get closer to the book, which is what this month is helping us to do.
Now, are you saying that you're going to be doing this for the rest every night for the rest of the year?
What I'm saying is that the people who have taken the time to be with us should go back and form their own communities, with their families or by themselves, and read the stories fully that we're not able to treat fully here because of time, and continue their learning on their own.
So all of this story is unfolding in the surah of the ants, which is Surah 27 in the Quran. And we will continue to work to catch up with these portions of the Quran. Tomorrow night we'll be on to portion 21. We're in the last 10 days of Ramadan. And we also, in these last 10 days of Ramadan, just in a very humble and very sincere way, just want to ask you to remember the American Islamic College in your thoughts and prayers, because we very much want and need our community to gather round and to be engaged with us, to be involved, to come and to study.
In a city shaped by water and wind, answers arrive like waves, quiet at first, then undeniable. When one finds you, move with it. Stay steady and let it carry you farther than you planned.